if you have any questions, don't wait for the end. Just ask away. Again, we can take a parking lot and take some questions there for Tanya. But maybe to start off with, and I suppose from a context perspective, could you tell us a little bit more about your role at AGL and the environment your teams operate in when it comes to managing work safety?
Okay, so my role currently, I sit in IT as a business systems analyst, or it's been renamed to technology asset lead in recent times. So I look after the management and governance of the ePAS permit to work system at site. And that sort of covers a lot of technical activities such as upgrades, server patching, data refreshes, those sorts of things. Also from a governance perspective, setting the rules against which we operate the ePAS system, do enhancements and configuration changes, look at release management, release strategies, because they tend to change quite a lot dependent on, how much work we've got sitting with Prometheus to be developed, or, what our outage status is at any particular time. It also covers risk management and vendor management as well. And then I have some other responsibilities from an IT perspective. Our operational environment is that we're a power station down in the Latrobe Valley in Victoria, and it has two sites. One's a station, one's a mine, and they do things differently, although we're supposed to be as similar as possible. So that offers us some challenges. It's a hazardous environment with lots of equipment, lots of things going on all the time. One of the things that defines us a little bit at the moment is that we're gearing towards closure. 2035 is when we're supposed to close the station. The mine will stay open for longer because it also serves Loy Yang B, which is owned by one of our competitors. We're 24/7 operation, 5 shifts at both sites. And the other thing that's a little bit different for us is that in the station, the ePAS system is, I'll use inverted commas, owned by the Operations Control Centre, while in the mine, it's operated by maintenance. So that poses some challenges because there's a different approach between operations and maintenance, which I'm sure you can understand. We have approximately 500 to 600 employees, and we can have a few thousand contractors during our major outages. So again, that's another challenge that we face because our workforce is continually changing.
Thank you. Are there any, I want to make sure that we get the opportunity to ask as well in the audience, right? Are there any sort of questions or thoughts there, how you would approach it? And you already spoke a little bit about the offline process. All right. Have we still got you there, Linda? Yeah.
Yep.
That's better on the big screen. So I suppose you've already alluded to it to some extent, but for AGL, what prompted AGL to take a different approach to managing the permits and safety workflows?
Back in the day, we would have been paper-based, but very early on in the piece, Loy Yang decided that it needed to have something electronic. And in the very early days, and we've been around for 40 years now, we worked with a local technology company called Sage Technology and built the first version of ePAS. And in those days, it was called PAS, Permit Admin System. And it was owned by the station and operated by them for many years. Eventually, we had to put it to rest and send it out to pasture because the operating system was no longer supportable and it had grown far too old and long in the tooth. The mine operated from a paper-based system, and one of their complexities back in the day was that they had 7 operating authorities. So they had 7 versions of permits, as well as things like operator standby, where you didn't need to have a permit. The work was just done under the watchful eye of our operators. So it meant that we had no visibility for anyone about the work being done other than the people hanging on to the permit, no visibility of isolations other than the people who had put them in place. And there was no quality checks being done on the permitting back in the day either, and we were really, really reliant on operating knowledge at that time. So from there, once it got a bit too long in the tooth, Sage Technology came back to us, and once again we worked with them, and we went on to the predecessor to ePAS, which was called Sage ePAS. And of course, if that wasn't enough for our people to put up with, we decided we'd also go and implement lockout and tag out at the same time. So, we're a little bit brave doing that.
Definitely brave, and but it's a fair, I suppose, a fair reasoning and justification to drive change based on what you just shared with us. Now, maybe sort of a follow-on question from that, because the complexity around, I suppose, implementing and rolling that out to the organization, whether it's a centralized or decentralized model, right? Could you share a little bit more about how you approach that as an organization, like the implementation and rollout?
Yeah, so what we did, our implementation project was really quite large, because of the number of people, the size of our site is also like 5,500 acres, and we've got infrastructure scattered all over the place. So, we needed to be able to have equipment up on our overburden dump, which is probably about a kilometre or so away from the station. We had to have it in our station. We have a coal handling plant. We have miles and miles and miles, or kilometres, of conveyors. We have dredges. We have a mine admin building. So just the actual physical location that we had to put all of these, like kiosks and things like that, was quite large. So that was one of our challenges. We had, because the station had used electronic permitting, already, that part of it wasn't so bad, but it was the getting the mine up to speed and the challenges of that. So what we did was we sat down, we had a project team pulled together with some very senior people, like the shift managers. There was a couple of shift managers on the project team. We had operators on the project team. We had permit officers from the mine on the project team. So we tried to pull together, a good mix of people. We're fairly careful in choosing the people who were going to be on the project team. We wanted some real go-getters who had good communication skills, because this, with such a large site and a transient workforce, we needed to be talking a lot about the changes that we were going to do. So at the station, they just decided to swap systems and go full bore. At the mine, they decided that they wanted to do a staged rollout, starting with the admin buildings, the control centre, and a few of the, the workshops and things like that were nearby. And in actual fact, we've only recently, as in last year, rolled out into the fire service system to have them covered by electronic permitting. So that's taken us a while, because we started back in 2018 when we started the rollout.
Yeah, so it's fair to say it's a journey, right? And regardless of the approach you take, it's a journey to get everyone on board. Now,
yes.
maybe a follow-up question there is like to I suppose get the stakeholders on board, whether it's at the top level or site specific, etc. And you spoke about it a bit already, but from a lessons learned or recommendations, we've got a couple of organizations here that are completely paper-based. I think there's others that are already semi or fully automated. But any sort of like advice you could give in that space or lessons learned?
Yeah, there's a couple of key things. Firstly, your steering committee. You need to have people who are there to support decision making and to help the project teams and give them guidance and be there as a reference point. We probably didn't have enough interaction between our steering committee and the project team, and when you look back, it's easy to see some of these things that you could have done better, but that's definitely one of them. It is absolutely essential to have the right people in your project team. One of the areas that we had a bit of a failure in was around our testing processes, because we didn't think to get someone who had a testing background, who could develop test plans, who understood the cadence of testing and what you were aiming for. So we fell down a little bit in that, and some things crept through that we should have picked up back in the day, but we didn't. I think one of the other things that is really important is get the IT department involved with the rollout in a major way. We probably didn't do that as well either, because they can make life really easy for you in terms of the technical aspects. Because you're going to put out kiosks with a computer and a printer and a tag printer, and you need to have them involved. You need to have your network available so that you've always got coverage in certain areas. And because we've got such a large site, and we've got some high level dams, we've got a pump station that's probably 30 kilometres away. We had to work through that, and we didn't have the best solutions to start off with, and we had to do some rework around it. So it's understanding all of that aspect. And gaining a thorough knowledge of what your software package is going to do, because we had some people with some preconceptions that it would be the same as the old system, and even to this day I still get asked about why can't we go back to PAS. It was the best thing we ever had. So people don't let go of things really well. And I think the other thing that really stands out for me, or there's two things: go overboard on the communications, because we all know humans don't read emails, they don't read news broadcasts, they find ways of missing out on pre-start talks and all of those sorts of things. So you don't get the level of communication you would expect. And for us, with all our contractors, a lot of their staff are not on site all the time. They're only at the outage. So, when they came in for the last outage, we were using PAS, and when they come in this time, we're using Sage to pass. And I think the other really important thing was to have governance processes set up and communicated. We didn't do that. That got done once I came on site probably 6 years ago, and I started working on it. And we've got some processes in place that are a little bit embedded at the moment, and what we need to do is improve them and rip a few permissions off people and things like that, which they're holding to their heart very dearly. So those are some of the things that make your project go a little bit better than what you might do originally.
Yeah, no, and I completely concur, because I think from a change management perspective, and I suppose both the leadership, like top down, but also sort of bottom up, people embracing the program and understanding why the program is run and why it's being put in place is absolutely critical. Are there any questions before I move on to my next question? And we've got 5 minutes. I've skipped a couple of questions, but I think I'm going to get about 80 to 90% through after all. So that's really good. Now, from an operational impact perspective, I thought it was really interesting to hear that once the system was in place and ready to go, I suppose, where did the teams start to really see the biggest improvements and the biggest change?
I think the first place was the much greater visibility of work being done, of what isolations were in place, and the upcoming work. So those things that are in the planning phase as well. That certainly was a great improvement over what we had previously. And this is probably in relation to the mine, because understanding the station already had electronic permitting. We were able to achieve a closer to consistent standard, and we still have divergence, because the operations in the mine are very different to the operations in the station, and there is I wouldn't say a blasé type approach, but because it's controlled by maintenance, it's very much about doing things in the mine to get the job done. And so there's a little bit of a difference there, and we're continuing to work to get a consistent standard. But I think now that we've got all of those process improvements in place, it's giving us time to do some more process improvements. So things like getting permits out on time and in the stated time frame we said that they were going to go out. The quality, the permit application that's being submitted. So we're fairly rigorous on, training our people, and then, rejecting permits where that quality of information is not there. We've also got, we're also achieving improved return to service times. So, there's some of the things that we've been able to achieve. And there's some other things around planning our work for outages. So what we've now developed as a result of having the system is specialised outage coordinators who do some work preparing all the permits. They're well experienced people and they know how to use the system to set up the work in, work packages and related permits and certificates and those sorts of things. So that's improved, our preparation work for the outages.
Amazing. Now, we've probably got time for one more question. Is there any other questions? I've got one last question for Linda, but all right. So I suppose from practical lessons for others, and you've already spoke a little bit about the implementation and sort of lessons learned and advice there. But for any organization looking to modernize the permit to work processes, do you have any sort of specific advice you would give them based on your experience or AGL's experience in this space?
Yeah. I would absolutely say go for it to start off with. What you can achieve by moving away from paper-based permit systems or systems that are too reliant on people and their knowledge, it causes issues further down the line. We have very old workforce that 40 or 50 years is the standard employment time. So you get a lot of embedded knowledge. But if you go into a system and you build up that history of work, then you're not reliant on, those people sort of saying, all right, fine, I've got, 2 years of long service leave banked up and I'm disappearing now and, sayonara, and you don't get that knowledge download. The other thing that we're actually looking to do with some of this is use AI to go back over work that we've done in the past and pick up how we've done it and do comparisons to see, well, is there some areas of improvement using the AI? And of course, just with the proviso that, you've got to really check what AI comes back with. But if we didn't have that knowledge bank of work that's already been done, then we couldn't do that. If we couldn't do it from a piece of paper and go from that. So I think, that's one of the things that we sort of, are really looking forward to digging into a bit more.
Linda, appreciate it. I've got the sign coming up that I have to wrap it up, but just quickly, apologies for the slow start, and I really appreciate you still dialed in considering some challenges on your side. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you here as well, appreciate you sticking around. And hope you got some good sort of takeaways. If you have any questions that you haven't asked right now, please approach one of the Prometheus crew. Or if there's any questions, I already spoke about a little bit about AI here, but come and see us at the Prometheus booth at the espresso stand, and we can have many lengthy conversations in the space. But thank you all very much. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.